So, with no further ado, we are really excited, and I have to say, brilliant that we've got our first diving star of the world, should we say? Done many dives and deep stuff.
TV celebrity.
Yeah, TV celebrity, and jumps out of planes and all sorts. So, with no further ado, let's welcome Andy to the show. Hello, Andy.
You're right.
Hello, hi.
Yeah, it's all good.
Having a good day?
Yeah. All ticking along. You know, it's beautiful weather outside. Can't really do much, but it's what it is.
Okay, so you're a qualified technical diver, so hopefully we'll have some technical divers listening in, and a closed circuit rebreather diver. What drew you into the whole technical side of diving? Was it a decision, or did you kind of drift into it?
Chicks and drugs, really. That's it's all about. That's just about, yeah, because
to be honest,
rebreathers are babe magnets. They're really, really not. They're really not. Nothing could be more. My fiance, we've been together like 15 and a half years, and literally, if one of my friends is around and we start talking about rebreathers, and she dies, but she just leave the room. She'd be like, "You're just boring me," The most boring chat in the world. Hi, do you want to hear about a rebreather? No. Sorry. Actually answer the question. It's exploration. That's what I love about diving. It's exploring, and it doesn't have to be technical. I say to people all the time that you can be a genuine explorer, not a kind of Instagram explorer. Where I think it's an overly used word now, but to go somewhere and see something, a place that no one's ever seen before. You can do that with a snorkel. That's all you need. Something as simple as a giant straw, because most of the, in Britain, we've got 25-ish thousand miles of coastline, 10,000 miles of river, and about 10,000 lakes, most of which is about 6 feet deep, and most of which, has never been seen by anyone. So it's why I always clarify I'm an underwater explorer and not an explorer, because everything I've never really explored anything new, particularly on land. But rebreathers do open up things to you that open circuit just can't cope with. So, for example, we spoke before about doing this cave dive that's 4 kilometers in and then 4 out at 60 to 100 meters. Now, if you try to do that with an open circuit, you would need dozens and dozens of bottles, dozens. Whereas with a rebreather, the CO2 scrubber is what restricts you, really. And the right conditions, I've run mine for sort of 6-7 hours. The manufacturer's guidelines are 3 or 4 hours, but under the right conditions, and I know what those are. I know where to push it where I can't. So we've done sort of 6, 7, 8. I think 8.5, almost 9 hours is the longest I've done in one sitting. But those are in really good conditions. Britannic was about 6 hours in the water, but again in quite nice conditions. Rebreathers just allow you to go much deeper and horizontally further for much longer. And also, I think tissue-wise, they're better for your profile, because with open circuit, as you ascend and you change mixes, you're breathing an optimal mix only at one set depth. So as soon as you leave that depth, it becomes suboptimal. Whereas with a rebreather, you're constantly changing your gas mix as you ascend, and therefore you're always breathing an optimal mix for your decompression. And so I think it's kinder on your tissues. And frankly, it's warmer, which I always thought was theoretically correct, but wouldn't actually make a real difference in the real world. But because the reaction that happens in the rebreather, the scrubbing out of the carbon dioxide, is an exothermic chemical reaction, it creates a bit of heat. So actually the gas you're breathing is slightly warm, and it does make a difference. In cold water, it's noticeably warmer diving the rebreather than an open circuit.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting.
A quick question for you, just out of interest, what dive computers do you use?
So when I've got a D5 for normal bits and bobs, I've got a D6 for free diving. And then when I'm rebreather diving, I've got sheer water that runs my JJ rebreather, and then a Sunto Eon Steel as my bailout. And if I'm cave diving an open circuit, which is pretty much the only time I would use open circuit now, is when I'm diving British caves, so really tight stuff, and I've got to go side mount. I've got an Eon Core and an Eon Steel as my two computers that I use, so one as a bailout. That's what I've got at the moment.
So why the difference? Is that to match with the kit that you're using?
Well, it's just what they're designed to do. So the Eons, the Sunto Eons are they've got CCR and hypoxic trimix capabilities. They're also big, but they're physically big things, like an iPhone size computers, which means it's really easy to read in the dark, and when the vis is bad. But also the buttons are really big. So again, you've got 4 pairs of gloves on, because you're in the water for hours and hours and it's freezing. You can still operate the buttons. Whereas the D6 is a normal small watch size. It's got a really good free dive mode. I think it does do some nitrox mixes and dive mixes, but I don't use it for that. So I use it for free diving. It's got a free dive mode. It's much smaller. I wouldn't want to be using a massive. The Eon Steel looks like wearing a brick. If you're diving, like out in Jamaica on Bond, when I was free diving there, I was free diving just in a pair of shorts. If you wore an Eon Steel, it's huge. It would look really weird, but with a dry suit and dry gloves on, it looks fine. And also be quite comfortable. It's quite heavy. So a D6 for that, and then the Eon Core is the backup to my Eon Steel. It's slightly smaller, but again, it's still got big buttons to operate, and it'll sit beside the Steel, and obviously they all run the same algorithms, so they all are identical, which is quite handy, and they all work the same way. Like, seem to have never really changed. I think my first computer for like 20 plus years ago was a Sunto, and they've never really changed the functionality of the buttons. So once you've learnt one, you can just like, if you can work one, you can work them all, kind of thing. They're pretty intuitive once you've learnt how to work one, so that's quite handy.
Nearly all our students all start with Suntos, and the school use Suntos for their computers and what have you. For that, because they're fairly easy to get your head around. The menu system, aren't they? They're fairly standard, and if you want to progress, if you've got your head around the menu system from the start, it's easy to progress with your diving, I suppose, for that side of things. And Eon Steel is a nice one to look at as well, and as you say, it's a nice big screen on it. Yeah, I mean,
it's massive, but actually when you're wearing a dry suit, it suddenly doesn't look that big at all. And so when you put gloves on, it's I couldn't operate my D6 not easily with 4 pairs of gloves on and freezing cold hands.
What's been your worst moment underwater or in a diving situation?
I think I've had regs fail me in caves, which is unpleasant. But also, again, cave diving, we also have two. I've done the system with enough to get out, so I've just switched to that one and then swam out. Although you are then highly aware you've now only got one system, which the chances of both systems failing are pretty small. But when one does go wrong, and you've got even just a few hundred meters to swim before you can get out on one system, that's quite a stressful, it's quite a stressful few minutes. And then I had a helmet flood on me at 50 meters. When I was in the forces, we were diving big sort of commercial hard helmets, the big sort of the Kirby Morgan 17Bs for the commercial divers that are watching, the big yellow commercial diving helmets. Down at 50 meters and then out about 20 meters from the end of the shot line on a distance line, and we're practicing underwater demolitions. What I think happened now, I didn't at the time, but I think a bit of grit. Something happened with the mushroom valve, and basically the helmet started filling with water, and you're wearing a big bowl full of water. And back then you didn't wear BCs, you had big lead boots on, a big lead waistcoat, so you couldn't self-rescue. You'd get hauled back up the surface, and with all that cable out, I was pulling a line, but wasn't getting any signals back. So in a bit, I was like, well, this is it. This is. So I kind of leaned forward, as you do when you try to run along the bottom of the seabed, and I ran along to the shot line with the idea being, I'm just going to pull myself up, do 50 meters of just pull-ups weighing a ton to the surface. I had a couple of hours of deco to do, but like, well, I'll just bang through that. I wouldn't obviously not stop to do any deco. I'll be bent on the surface, but that's not bad. But even then, I thought I'm not sure I can hold my breath all the way from do a 20-meter run and a 50-meter set of pull-ups with wearing this kit. But I got back to the shot line, and as I stood up vertical again, it must have knocked the grit or the stone or whatever was wrong with the valve, and bang, the helmet just emptied. And I went back to work. because it was the army, so you couldn't go, I want to come out. You just got to go, I've just got to stay down here and finish the job they sent me down here to do. So, yeah, I turned around and cracked on and finished the dive.
I just thought just don't think about things like that. It's just a...
Thank you. So what was your deepest dive that you did?
I've done 184 meters, but it was nice, warm, blue water. And it was a build-up dive for something deeper that never happened in the end. But it's probably not the most hardcore. I think we did some diving a couple of years ago in a Jamo mine in Finland, and the maximum we got was 90 meters, which isn't, again, that's not terribly deep, but it's hundreds and hundreds of meters inside a flooded mine system. So you're scootering for, I don't know, like 20 minutes through this labyrinth of huge chambers and tunnels, network tunnels, to get down to this place. And you're racking up quite a bit of deco, but what makes it so hard was how cold it was. So we were breaking the ice to get in, because the mine entrance is at the bottom of the lake. And inside the mine, it's 2 degrees Celsius. And because it's fresh water, the thermocline is reversed. So from 20 meters to the surface, it's 0 degrees Celsius. In fact, after 4.5 hours in the water, we had to take off our bailout cylinders, our side-slung bailout cylinders, because we're on rebreathers again, to smash the ice from underneath to get back out. It wasn't thick, but yeah, that was the case. You've got to wait. If you're in the water for like 4 or 5 hours at those sort of temperatures, you've got such amount of undersuit on. Obviously, you've got 3 pairs of warm gloves, a pair of dry gloves. You've got clown gloves on, a couple of hoods. You get so much kit on, you just can't move. Like you can barely reach behind you, and you can't really feel anything. And you are. I mean, I was borderline hypothermic on every single dive. So those are hard. Those are hard dives to do, because they're technically quite difficult. They're reasonably deep. 90 meters is still reasonably deep. It's just still hypoxic gases and rebreathers. But the cold makes it so much more difficult, because the cold forces you to wear so much extra stuff that diving becomes hard work. It's easy to dive in a 2 mil wetsuit, no hood, no gloves, easy. When you've got 4 pairs of gloves on, 3 undersuits, 2 hoods, all that stuff, it becomes much more challenging just getting in the water, getting out of the water and doing the dive. And we're carrying big torches. We're filming, so we're carrying big torches and all that stuff as well. And the other thing was, you had to bring your A game, not because of the dive itself, but because of the people I was with. I was with a world class bunch of divers, people like Sammy Packanen and Rich Stevenson, Phil Short, Arne Angrimson, Gemma Smith. There's some real world class divers there, so you don't want to look like a complete buffoon in front of them either. Yeah. So
and did you just say you were filming for that one as well?
Yes, that was a film made by Jani Sahunen called Dive Odyssey 2018. So it's a 10-minute short film, but it's like a sort of sci-fi kind of art house film he made. For those folks listening, my screen just went a bit strange. So that's worth watching. It's beautifully shot, and I've shown it to non-divers. So it's not for technical divers. It's not really about diving. It's about this kind of weird, abstract sort of sci-fi story straight from Yanni's amazingly weird brain. But it's just beautifully shot, and it's kind of inspired by Space Odyssey 2001. But it's a great project to work on. Yeah.
Diving the Titanic sister ship, the Britannic, was that one of your dreams of yours, or do it because you were working with them?
Both, because to answer the first one, yes, it was definitely on. If you're going to dive one wreck in the world, it's not a bad wreck to dive. For a variety of reasons. One, I think initially was because it's a bit of a who's who of diving. I think it was. It's becoming more open now, but. I remember reading the old diver magazines when I think like Kev Gardner did 1998 Britannic expedition, and Rich Stevenson, Richie Kohler, Evan Kovacs, people like that have dived Britannic. Obviously, it's first found by Jacques Cousteau back in 72. I can't remember where he found it now. Anyway, so there's this list of literally world-class divers that have dived Britannic, Also, there's the historical element. It is Titanic's sister ship. It's it was being used as a hospital ship back in World War One. It wasn't like it didn't sink in its maiden voyage. It did. I think it was on its 4th run to the Mediterranean. So it'd been bringing injured troops back from the Med, like Gallipoli and that sort of places, back to the UK, like 3 times as its 4th trip when it hit a mine. And people say, "Oh God, another White Star ship sank." Yeah, but to be fair to the guys, it hit a mine that was designed specifically to sink battleships, and it was just a liner. But I think the last reason is there's kind of the heritage of the divers that have dived it before. There's the history of the shipwreck itself, but also the fact is it's just a bloody good dive. Like, it's a 900-foot long shipwreck that is phenomenally well preserved. I mean, I'm not even sure why in those sort of waters it's so, but it is. It's phenomenally well preserved. Beautiful warm water, great visibility, 50-meter visibility, but it's huge because even lying on its side as it is, it's still 30 meters from the top of the shipwreck to the seabed. So, if that was a normal shipwreck and the top had been lapped by the waves, the bottom would still be just on the very edge of most recreational divers. It's just a huge shipwreck. And I mean, and if that was in shallow water, it would be the most dived shipwreck in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. But yeah, it's well worth doing, and it's becoming more and more doable. 120 meters, which is how deep it is, isn't as deep as it used to be. Rebreathers are becoming much more reliable and user friendly. Mixed gases are becoming much more prevalent. We've learned a lot of mistakes, learned from mistakes along the way. So, the kind of confidence we have in the algorithms and the tables and the gases themselves becoming better. So, 120 meters isn't as deep as it used to be.
And just going back to your footage for the Britannic, it's for anyone who's going to watch it who hasn't seen it yet. It's absolutely incredible. The footage, from your point of view as a diver, is absolutely incredible. And from even a non-diver who goes, "Oh, but it's just a piece of metal," the 3D mapping that you've put alongside, so that you can actually see what you are looking at from the diver's point of view, is incredible. The way you've integrated them together, so that you can see exactly what image you're looking at from under the water, and for us as the viewers at home to see what you're seeing as well, is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the BBC, the programme, they did a lot of sort of almost CGI animations as well to tell the story, because it does explain stuff. If you're not a diver, and it can be hard sometimes to picture a shipwreck that's lying on its side, how that actually fits in. So, did a good job of explaining things with CGI and showing where the propellers and how it sank, and something that the wreck makes much more sense then. And also the film itself, which I quite liked, wasn't about Britannic or the shipwreck. It was using the shipwreck to tell the story of the people who worked on it. So it was kind of using diaries and eyewitness accounts to talk about the sinking, but also to unpack the life on board. So how the nurses and the doctors and the injured soldiers and all that. So it wasn't just about the sinking of the Britannic. It was about the story of the people that worked on Britannic for the time that it was in use. That was good fun. It was good fun, and I got paid to go and dive Britannic. It was pretty cool. And the best thing is, we had terrible weather, high wind, and you often get the problem off Key Island where Britannic is. You get big problems with the wind. And we had 10 days, well, actually we had 7 days, and the wind was too bad to dive. So the BBC said, okay, we'll give an extension of 3 days, but if you can't dive by day 10, that's it, come home, shoot's over. And in day 10, the wind dropped enough, but the current picked up. And the captain, this Russian captain, was like, not sure. So we got kitted up. We sat, in the Greek summer, fully kitted up, dry suits, rebreathers, just waiting for him to go, okay, go. And we're going to literally throw ourselves off the boat before he could change his mind. And at 2 PM, he said, okay, go. And we all just got off. And myself and 3 Americans. And it was the 11th of June. And the 11th of June is significant because it is not only my birthday, as it is also Jacques Cousteau's birthday.
Wow.
Not the same year, I hasten to add, but the same day. Yeah. I dived Britannic on my birthday and Jacques Cousteau's birthday. So that was pretty cool.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Have you got any plans to go back and do another dive on Britannic?
I'd like to. It's not cheap, so I tend to have to try and get other people to pay for it by pitching TV ideas or get involved in science projects. But the one thing about it is it's never really been explored internally. I think Richie Stevenson and Richie Kohler and Evan Kovacs have been in years ago, like 2006. They got just inside the engine room, and that was it. But internally, there's a labyrinth. It's basically a giant. It's 900 feet long and 100 feet wide. It's a labyrinth of cave systems, basically like a metal cave system. And no one's ever been inside it since it sank what we're now 104 years ago. And the level of preservation is amazing. So I think the ballroom and some of the medical rooms and that stuff would make phenomenal dives, but you're not allowed to dive inside it. So if one day I could get special permission to actually penetrate the wreck, then that would be a lifetime dive.
Why aren't you allowed inside it?
Well, the Greek Ephraim, who are like sort of the Greek version of English heritage, they're quite strict about archaeology, and the shipwreck is kind of classed as archaeology. Also, there's been a few fatalities on the shipwreck, and although none of them have ever been to do with penetration, one of the things that the Greeks come up with was that decided that penetration was out. So for the time being, no one's had a permit to penetrate the wreck for like the last 20 odd years.
What was your best part of the dive? What was the best part of being on there?
I mean, like a lot of these dives, especially if we found like a new shipwreck, or we found out a mark that we think is a new shipwreck, and even though Britannic wasn't new, it was that sort of thrill. It's the free fall, it's the anticipation. It's like, why Christmas Eve is better than Christmas Day, So, and obviously 120 meters, you've got a fair bit of free fall to do to get from the surface. And as you're in free fall, you're looking down, and it's just all you can see is sort of dark blue gloom. And just minute after minute after minute, but you're just getting more and more excited about what you see, and suddenly boom, the shipwreck's there beneath you. So that's certainly, I think that anticipation is always, I think, exciting on any dive like that. And so the level of preservation in things like we went into the bridge, because you can because the roofs collapse, you actually get into the bridge without strictly penetrating. And the telegraphs there, for those who know what a telegraph is, it's that thing you might see on films when they're signalling full ahead or stop or full astern. It's like a sort of semicircle of glass with a big sort of metal and wood handle that goes back and forth. That is perfectly intact. The glass isn't even cracked, and you can sort of rub off some of the sort of the silt. And under the glass is perfect white background, perfect clear black writing that says stop, full ahead, full astern. That was pretty. I think the last person who held this and pulled it into stop, and it still is in the middle position, still in the stop position, was all do so by Captain Bartlett. When the mine struck. Well, actually, that's not true. When the mine struck, he thought, because only a few miles from shore, he thought he'd try and beach the ship. So he drove it towards the shore, but it was sinking too fast. So he called a full stop and then got everyone to abandon.
Was it a little bit surreal when you sort of saw something like that? Did it sort of, how sometimes you can see these things and it sort of takes you back to how it must have been for them? Is it almost a little bit eerie, sort of? I don't know, eerie, but certainly, I think little things are more evocative than the big things. A shipwreck does not conjure up the idea of human beings to me. A telegraph handle does, because a guy placed his hand there. There's a man's hand held that. I dived a mine in Wales once, because we've got a lot of flooded mine systems in the UK that have never been explored, well, never been rediscovered, should we say, since they were abandoned, and the flood, the water table, because a lot of the mines were pumped out when they were being used, we were deep. And I was exploring one in Wales that someone put me onto. And at the entrance of one of the tunnels, you're about 30 meters down, and then you go into the horizontal passageway, and there's all this graffiti in the wall. And it was from 1938. But the last guys to use this mine, when it was the last day it was in operation in 1938, were doing tally marks, and they'd make tally marks of the amount of carts of slate they were bringing up, because that's how they were paid. And they'd written the guy's name was Ted Hughes, 24 Jan 1938. 24th of July 1938, and you're thinking that is more evocative than anything else. So it's the little things that a human being, I think held as well. It's not like a corridor, or it's like a door handle, or
the handle of a telegraph or a piece of graffiti that they actually wrote there. I think those little things are a far stronger connection to people.
I think the medical ward would like really get you. I think if you explore it and you manage to get down that, I think that would really like sink your heart.
Yeah, I mean, luckily there was no one on. No, they hadn't. They're on their way to pick up injured troops when it sank. So everyone on board was able-bodied. Otherwise, the death toll would have been massive. And we managed to look in some of the portholes into some of the medical rooms. Obviously, all the stuff has kind of fallen to one side because it's tipped over on its side, and you can see that the gurneys, the wheeled stretchers that they used, and some of the beds and that there. But they're more recovery rooms and operating theatres, so it's just sort of a big pile of jumbled beds. So it's maybe not. But again, I think it's all personal. Some people find other parts of the ship far more evocative than others. I didn't find the medical wards and the beds that evocative. I found literally things like door handles and things that somebody would have actually, somebody actually would have touched. So. But I mean, with all these things, it's very personal. A bit like diving. I've got friends who are hardcore wreck divers, not interested in anything else but shipwrecks. Other guys who are all they do is cave dive. They've never been in a boat before in their life, and that's all they do. So, but it's just fine. Horses for courses.
Yeah, we all like different things.
Have you got any other wrecks that you're keen to dive?
Anyone that's not been discovered yet is always on the list. That's of the ones that are known about, there's a wreck called the HMS Victoria, or Victory. Yeah, Victory. That's basically sunk off Lebanon in the 1880s, but it's vertical, so it sank bow first, and it sank perfectly vertical. It hit the seabed, and the seabed's like about 150 odd meters down. I can't remember. It's quite deep anyway. And the ship sank in, so it hit the seabed like a spear and penetrated the seabed about 20-30 meters. So it's still sat there. So the propellers are at the top at like 74 meters, and they're the top of the wreck, the propellers, and you dive in this vertical shipwreck. And I think if you were to be able to get inside and get into the bow, the chambers in the bow, you'd actually be underground, because the last was the front 20 meters, which is now the bottom 20 meters, are now actually under the seabed, so because it's sunk in. So that'd be quite a cool one.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, these wrecks. It's just all the unknown.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for for giving us some time to go through the interview and that with you.
Nice to talk about diving, since we can't actually do any of the real thing at the moment. So
thank you very much.
Cool. No worries, guys. We'll hear from you later, and we'll hopefully see you again. And let's be optimistic and say we're back to diving by the middle of May.
Yes.
Probably not, but let's say so. I'll probably hopefully get back on the podcast in kind of September time.
That'd be brilliant.
Okay, cool. No worries.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.